Hello, you're listening to the Robyn Rocket Zoom podcast. I'm Robyn Rocket. I'm a space trumpeter, and in 2023 I had funding from Arts Council England to have a radio show on Resonance FM. It was called Robyn's Rocket Zoom, and it's still going now, probably. Anyway, I started interviewing artists who inspire me, and I then thought it would be a good idea to put it into a podcast because it would make it more accessible to more people. And in this show, I'm going to be chatting to Jem Freeman. So here is part one of Jem Freeman's podcast.
My name is Jem. I am a queer, non-binary artist. My pronouns are they, them. Also autistic. I'm 39 and I live in the south of London. No, I don't. I live in the south of England, not the south of London. I'm currently in the east of London. I don't know where I live exactly. Anyway, I play mostly electric guitar. I taught myself when I was about 15. And since then, I've been in a variety of bands. I'm currently in Jemma Freeman and the Cosmic Something. That's my main band. But I also play some guitar for Guts, who are a sort of noisy saxophone-fronted punk band. And I also play bass for your Heterosexual Violence. Play some guitar sometimes for Fran Lobo. And I sometimes play some guitar for Wendy Rae Fowler. And I think that's all of them. Hopefully that's not made the computer crash with the volume of guitar-based activities that I take part in, which is what happened a moment ago.
Was there always music when you were growing up? What are your first memories about the music in your house?
I think I can just remember there being music all the time from when I was really small. One of my earliest memories was thinking that we used to have the speakers for the stereo they were like on the floor, quite low to the ground. And I used to think that when the radio was on, that if I went over and sang into the speakers, that I would be broadcast on the radio. So I don't know, it must have been pretty small because that was like head height or something. The speakers were. I don't dwell on the floor now. I'm about 5'2.5" when standing up. So I must have been quite small. I can remember I used to do kind of like performances or dance routines to things. And I can remember dancing in the Street by David Bowie and Mick Jagger's version of that. I used to like Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles. I used to really like the Doctor Who theme tune, whichever version they were currently on, around in the sort of mid-1980s, I suppose, for me to remember it. And then there was a Malcolm McLaren track, which was like, he did a classical album where he kind of remixed things. I used to like dancing around to that.
Is the guitar your first instrument?
No, it's not my first instrument. It was very difficult for me to get hold of a guitar. And that took years and years of like badgering my parents, which is not something I used to do very often because I would be put off and told not to. So the first instrument I had, weirdly, was a little Casio keyboard. I was never given lessons or anything, though. They just got me a keyboard one birthday, I think. I'm not quite sure why. And then the first thing I was taught was probably what lots of people were taught was recorder. Or I have a very distinct memory of using the chime bars in my primary school. I picked up violin when I was about 8 for some reason. I do not know why. My parents thought that I wanted to do that, but that's what I was chosen for me or by me, perhaps. I don't know. I don't remember being particularly passionate about it. We didn't listen to any violin music particularly, but I learned that for quite a while. I got up to like grade 5.
In the UK, most classical instruments are taught using a grade system. You start at prep, which is like preparing to do grades, and then you do grades 1 through to 8. And after that, there are some higher qualifications. The higher the grade, the more skills a person has. Usually grades involve scales, which are particular patterns of notes, and also learning particular pieces of music, and being able to sight read, which means seeing a piece of music you've never seen before and then playing it.
But I have no real great affinity with the violin. I can play a tune on the violin, but I'm not very good. It doesn't come very naturally to me, and I suppose it's probably because you can't really make the kind of music that I listened to and was familiar with or wanted to make with the violin. Although I did teach myself the chords of the guitar by learning everything upside down on violin. So I learnt some bits of the chords because it's the same but the wrong way around, and learnt to strum, I suppose, on the violin. Yeah, those are the things I learned. I've never learnt piano, so everything else is self-taught.
What attracted you to the guitar?
I suppose at school at the time was like Brit pop was very trendy. So guitar music was very trendy again, I suppose. Whereas prior to that been a lot of like dance music and hip hop and things in the charts, so not really guitars in sight. I suppose perhaps just because my friends were all in bands and things, well, not bands exactly, but playing together and had guitars. And I think I just kind of saw this as like, I just needed to have one. I just had to have one because I just wanted to be part of this group of people that were friends and I thought were cool and had interesting music taste. But I needed a guitar. And actually, I joined their band and I went to their first rehearsal and I think they thought I had a guitar. And I didn't have one. And they're like, oh, but you'll bring your guitar next time, won't you? And I think that's probably why I just if I had not managed to get one by that next rehearsal, I think I knew in my head that my social life would have been entirely over. So I somehow overrode all of the potential shaming and criticism I get for asking for it and managed to get one. It was near my birthday. And then they just took me to go and get one somehow or other. It was an electric guitar I got first. Lots of people start on acoustics, but I got an electric.
What did it look like?
Black Japanese K fake Les Paul, which weighed an absolute ton. It's really hard to play as well.
Were you really into Britpop at the time?
Not really. I think at school I was into various things just because it seemed like that was the right thing to like because people liked it. So I had no real love of it. I like some bits of it. Like with any type of music, I try and find something in it that I like. So I've been kind of a bit of a kind of outsider and had phases of listening to particular types of music for periods of time, mostly perhaps because other people were doing it and it was a way of being social. But I would never be kind of obsessed with something just because it's a certain style or something. So, for example, when I was a bit older, I used to go to like drum and bass raves and things, and I just kind of pick and choose like sort of bits and pieces that I found interesting, whereas some people would just be like anything drum and bass was like really exciting to them. And I think with Britpop, it was probably the same, that there might be like songs here or there that I liked, but as a kind of genre or style or whatever, I don't think it was something I particularly was. Like I was listening to David Bowie and Deep Purple at that time. That was not something anybody gave a shit about, and nobody wanted to know about Deep Purple when we were like 13, 14. Like that's just not a cool thing to talk about. So I suppose, I mean, my workbooks, if you looked at my general workbook, they would all be, we all drew and decorated them and they'd all have like Oasis and Pulp and whatever. I think I was more about like copying the logos though. My bag had that on there. And then like the next year it had all like metal bands like Slipknot and all the rest of it. And again, I wasn't really a proper metaler either. I was just I'm always kind of dip my toe in all kinds of different things that just take my fancy, I suppose, rather than commit to a particular genre or style. Because I think for me, music transcends categorization in that kind of way. So there'll be bits of things I like from all over the place. I think it makes it a bit difficult though sometimes to talk about music with some people, because some people are really like, oh, I'm this. And then if you don't have a kind of encyclopedic knowledge of like all of that genre, I think you're seen as a bit of a tourist, but I don't see it like that. I think you can get deep meaning from passing in and out of different genres and things, because you can connect to music in a way that you can't with other things, perhaps.
And when you were at school, did you do a lot of performing?
Not really. I suppose I've always done performance. I was always like in school choirs and I was in the orchestra. Although I can't read music, I've got dysgraphia, so I can't read music. It all moves in front of my eyes. And so I used to learn like whole massive pieces of music in my head. I was second violin. I was never first violin. And that's probably because I didn't realise I couldn't really read the music. I mean, I sort of did. I just thought I couldn't be bothered to learn it or something, even though like I was looking at it every week. Anyone else, I think, you're looking at the same thing every single week. You're playing all the notes. But for me, I wasn't really actually, like I can follow the notes. I can follow where you are, but I just couldn't see where they are on the lines. All the lines disappeared for me and danced about. So I couldn't actually tell what line I was looking at. I couldn't tell what note I was looking at. So my earliest things is like performing like that. When I first got a guitar, I was like 15. So a bit too young really to perform or do any gigs. So I was in like this first band, which didn't have a name, just a group of us in a bedroom. And we learned some things for her dad's 50th birthday, I guess, and like her cousin's birthday or something. And I got it all wrong. And I think I went off in a huff. That was my first performance. And then I didn't really play live properly in a band with music and guitars for ages until I was at university, till I was like 20, really. I didn't actually play live. Kind of did that as a bit of a joke in a way. The first kind of proper band was called The Fucks, and that was me and my friend George, and we used like a Yamaha keyboard for our drum beats, and I was playing either the synth or I was playing guitar and singing. That was like my first ever live thing, I think, really. First proper thing.
Where did you go to uni and what did you study?
I went to uni in Kingston. I studied fine art, and I did almost no fine art throughout that entire time. I mostly made music and taught myself guitar and formed this band and did a lot of performances, playing like all the time in London at that point.
And was it when you were at uni that you started going to gigs?
First time I went to gigs, well, we used to sneak in. We had like some older friends who drove, and somehow or other, even though we all clearly looked very, very young, we used to sneak into a pub in Wycombe, High Wycombe, which is the nearest kind of proper live music venue, and get to watch loads of bands. We saw ska punky type bands and things there mostly. I remember seeing King Prawn. That was really exciting. Some like very small metal bands that would have gone around at the time. I deliberately copied the Slipknot logo onto my bag at school because I wanted to be friends with these metalers that were like older than me. And it worked because they noticed I had Slipknot written on my bag, and then I got invited to Slipknot's first UK gig. That was amazing. There were a lot of metal gigs. So I saw like System of a Down. I think actually Reading Festival might be my first big gig. And we saw like Page and Plant, Ash, and Rage Against the Machine, and Hole, and like a whole bunch of like cool things.
What was it that appealed to you about metal?
I'm not quite sure. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I think I just thought, oh, maybe I'd heard about metal and wanted to go and see it. And then my friends were not really into that. My friends in my year were not. There were no metalers. It was an all-girls school, very prim and proper. It was a grammar school. We had to pass an exam to get in there to go there. I was kind of noticeably quite odd compared to my peers. There was a group of us that were also unusual and into like indie music and all the rest of it. And I was kind of into that, but they were quite obsessively into it in a way that I couldn't really relate to because I didn't really find the music they were listening to touched me in the way that perhaps it did them. And I don't know why I felt like I wanted to go to the metal gigs. Don't know, maybe just to see. I'm one of those people that will do things just to see. I'm like, I don't know what it is, so I want to go and see what it is so that I know then what it is. So it probably might have been just that. And I was like, I wonder what that is. And I probably just kind of contrived a way to go and see. I couldn't be straightforward and just be like, hello, I would like to come to the metal gig. I had to do something like elaborate and non-indirect because I didn't know how to talk to people. So, yeah, I don't know why I thought that really. I don't know, it's the same as like, how did I end up going to drum and bass gigs? I'm not quite sure. I just kind of did.
If you want to find out what happened to Jem and how they made their way in music, then you can listen to part 2 wherever you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening to Robyn Rocket Zoom podcast. Thank you to Jem for being my guest. Thank you to executive producer Paul Dutnall. Thanks to funding from Arts Council England that made this project possible. Resonance FM for putting the show on in the first place. And you for listening. Bye bye.